I want to begin by referring to something that I care a lot about, that ought to have been in the Queen's speech but wasn't, the Hillsborough Law, and in particular the Public Advocate Bill that my noble friend Lord Wills first introduced into the other place in 2014, and that he and I have been introducing into both houses ever since. Its aim is to prevent families bereaved by public disasters from ever again having to endure the horrors that the Hillsborough families and survivors have endured over the course of 33 years. Something similar was in the Conservative manifesto in 2017, but it's disappeared, and I don't understand why. Disasters continue to happen, and whilst each has its own particular circumstances, there are common themes which a public advocate proposed in my bill would work to ameliorate at an early stage, saving years of heartache, pain and cost to those affected, and saving millions of pounds in costs to the public purse. I know that the Right Honourable Member for Pontefract and Castleford mentioned it in her speech, and the Right Honourable Member for Maidenhead, who told the PM on the first day of the debate that he should simply adopt my bill. Well, naturally, I agree with that. It would fulfil a manifesto promise, and why has it disappeared, Mr Deputy Speaker? I simply don't understand it. It's long since past due that the Public Advocate Bill be enacted. It's long past due that the Hillsborough Law be passed through this place, and I hope even now the Government decide to do it. They'd get a lot of support on this side of the House. Mr Deputy Speaker, the last 12 Tory years have seen economic growth stagnate. It's fallen from 2% a year on average under Labour to just 1.5%, and is forecast by the Bank of England to go negative shortly. Inflation's hit 7%. Is forecast to reach 10% later this year. Energy bills are up 54% this year already and are going to rise further in October. Food and fuel prices are soaring because of the end of frictionless trade with Europe after Brexit and because of the shocks caused by the Ukraine war and COVID. Coming food increases will be apocalyptic, according to the Governor of the Bank of England yesterday. Yet the OBR says real wages will be lower in 2026 than they were in 2008, before the global financial crisis. My constituents have faced 12 years of frozen wages and real terms cuts to the support that they used to rely on in difficult times. The Government have recently cut universal credit by £1,000 and have increased benefit levels by 3% when inflation is over 7%, a real terms cut for some of the poorest in our society. The Government have just increased taxes on working people by increasing national insurance, one of 15 Tory tax rises that have left taxes at their highest level for 70 years. The Government's failure to help the poorest people now is exacerbating the cost of living crisis faced by thousands of families in Garston and Halewood. We need measures to tackle the cost of living crisis with an emergency budget to impose a windfall tax on the oil and gas companies, coining it in because of the soaring price of energy, and we need it now. That is why I welcome very much the amendment to the Loyal Address tabled by the opposition front bench. We really do need short-term measures that will help immediately when the bills need paying, not promises of jam tomorrow, sometime in the future when it will be too late to avert serious crises for many families in my constituencies. And let me say to government ministers and some Tory backbenchers that the old Tory trick of blaming poor people for their own misfortune as though they are morally culpable is heartless, and it shows that they're out of touch in addition to being callous. Many of my constituents have been trying to get more hours or better jobs, buying cheaper supermarket brands, cooking on a shoestring, and are still sinking financially. They simply don't have enough money to live because of increasing costs and real cuts in their income that have gone on for years. Many are disabled. Some can't work even though they want to, or change their circumstances easily, or they have caring responsibilities and lose more in additional childcare costs by increasing their hours than they gain from increasing wages that they might get for working for longer, or they're pensioners on small fixed incomes without the financial resilience to cope with huge increases in the cost of living. Many budget their incomes to within pennies, and it's not fair to imply that they're themselves at fault for their situation, or they could easily choose to change it if only they'd bother to do so. When this government begins to realise the truth of this, then they might start to think that they should do something about it. Mr Deputy Speaker, as energy bills rise by record amounts later this year, it's shameful that the Chancellor is not doing anything really to stop it and is more intent on his own feud with the Prime Minister about his own political future than about the future of millions of people in this country. Members opposite could do some good. They could vote for this amendment tonight.